Right. And then the other one too. That is the YouTube. That's YouTube. Yeah. Let's do it. Yep. Oops, sorry. You need to put me on stage. Oh no, that's it. Yeah. All right, everybody. Let's get started here. We're here today for Ruby Tuesday KL 107. And this event is brought to you by those two folks there, Engineers Mai and Ruby KL, Ruby Malaysia KL. And you can find us on all these places. You can find on Facebook, rubybrigade.my, meetup.com, GitHub, Slack, and Discord. I think that's it. And today's venue, food and drinks are sponsored by our friends of HiveKind. Hire a dedicated development team focused on your success. Woo! Note to self, remember to introduce yourself. My name is Helio and I'm one of the co-organizers. And I have here by me my friend Tristan. He works here at HiveKind and he's one of the co-organizers. He's just been doing this for 10 years or so. And for the folks online, just keep in mind that your profile name, your profile picture may show up on the stream if you ask any questions. We go by the Ruby language code of conduct. Make sure to act accordingly and treat each other nice. And without further ado, I want to invite my friend Anonoz to talk about OyenCov. OyenCov. All right, let me give this to you.
I think I started streaming. Oh no, that's a
No,
microphone.
fancy.
Oh man. Okay, guys, selamat. Thanks for coming to a Ruby meetup. I think I've been lurking around in different meetups in KL, Singapore, here for about 10 years, and I've never done any sharing in any Ruby meetup and conferences ever. So this will be the first time for me. So today I want to promote you guys my startup in MVP stage. But before I advertise anything, I'll just do a 3 random Rails tip that I have that I want to share with y'all. But if y'all are senior, then the tips are probably won't be a surprise for y'all. Okay. Okay. So the first one, running Rails new, but not pulling any new gems. So one of the tricks that if I want to ever like do a new Rails project quickly, I'll just like copy these basic files over the same Ruby version, gem file log, git ignore to the new one. I run bundle install, and then I run instead of just running Rails new, I run bundle exec Rails new. That way you'll get a new. The trick to do this is instead of specifying your new project's name, you can just put a period at the end of the command. Then you'll just take the project name from the new directory, the name of the directory that you are running, you are creating a project in. So second trick, I like to use Rails as a static site generator. One of the proudest thing that I probably did in Anonoz is turning the homepage into a static site. So we managed, me and another junior engineer in the company, we managed to ship this in 4 weeks. I think there are 4 locales, and then there are 20 pages per country that we need to ship. So in order to do that quickly, and I also want to ensure the project is maintainable, I just decided to use what everybody knew in the company, which is Ruby on Rails. We don't know how to use Jekyll, we don't know how to use a Hugo, no other static sites. So I just use Ruby on Rails for this one. But I also deployed this on Cloudflare pages. There is no backend for this website whatsoever. So the benefits are clear. We get to use a Rails ecosystem again. All the existing software engineers don't need to learn anything new. Hosting is free. You can just put it on Cloudflare pages, GitHub pages, Netlify, Amazon S3. And then it's also much more stable because there's no backend. You don't need to worry about errors like breaking out here and there. The rough steps are you generate a new Rails project, but you disable everything, like all the mailers, all the testing, all the database, everything. You just ignore them when you run Rails new. Second trick is to use a gem called high voltage. High voltage is quite cool. I'll show you in the next slide. Third thing is you write a custom build script, but the build script is actually rather short. All it does is that it just run the bash script of like curling all the pages and then save it into file. And then for that, you just push it to a CDN, like Cloudflare pages. Whenever you can run Rails during the build step, you can deploy to it. So I want to promote this website called railsnew.app. It's made by Excel here. Yeah. All I did on his website is I just scroll down. I just skip. I don't want database everything, or I just click minimal. Then you'll just give me this command. I just copied it, paste it in my terminal, and I got a new static site, pretty much. The high voltage gem, you like inside the views folder, you just inside the views folder, you specify one of the folder that will become the directory for all the static pages. You can nest it however many level you want, and then in the URL you can just it's actually kind of like a file-based routing system. It's actually exactly a file-based routing system at PHP. Yeah. Okay, right? I'm fucking nervous.
Why is it named high voltage?
I have no idea. I think it's run by it's developed by Thoughtbots, I think.
It's static.
Oh shit, yeah. I never thought of it. I never thought of it. The custom build script is all it does is I just make a custom controller that lists all the static pages from the high voltage gem, and then I loop through it, and then I just curl it, save it into HTML files, and then that's it. You can just make sure the GitHub pages or Cloudflare pages run this script, and you're good to go. The third tip is localhost TLD. I only recently discovered this because I wanted to develop a Rails app that requires multiple subdomains. And basically it's like this. So instead of just localhost port number, I want to put like app.something.localhost or api.something.localhost. Apparently, ever since 1999, there is IETF, IFC that say that this is the best practice, but they didn't make it a standard. So not all softwares out there, a little bit. I think Firefox, Chrome, and curl command line respect this localhost TLD. It means that whatever domain you type inside there and then .localhost, it will always resolve to loopback without any extra configuration. But somehow Apple doesn't support it outright. So if you want to force all the softwares on your system to be able to resolve to loop back, right? One of the easiest way, instead of just changing the etc host, because in etc host you cannot put like an asterisk.localhost and then loop back. You have to actually type the full domain name, and then you put a 127.0.0.1 inside in order to force it to loop back. So that's not very nice. In order to automate it, one way is to just install Cloudflare Walk. And then suddenly all the software will just anything with local TLD, you just return 127.0.1 pretty much. Any questions so far? Yep. But how many people already knew this? How many of you are using have been doing multiple subdomain in development? Okay.
But I use it as a host.
You what?
etc host.
Okay. But etc works fine if you don't have that much subdomain. If you want to do multi-tenancy development, like each subdomain belongs to a new guy, then you probably need it straight.
Yep.
Yeah. Any question? Okay. Oh no, I'm finishing this too early. Now I have to move on to the part that I didn't prepare as much. But yeah. So I want to introduce to you guys OyenCov. It's something I've been working on for the past 2 years, a bit too slowly. I've been spending pretty much last year part-time in the company. Now I'm revisiting this project. So thanks to one of my colleagues here, we are getting a lot of things done. It's now kind of MVP ready. And then I kind of hope that this will become the standard of test coverage scoring for Ruby on Rails moving forward. Yep. So the current practice is we have been told to have a test coverage of more than 80%, and then we stick to one library called SimpleCov. I think there's a good starting point, but I've been talking to some of the Rails company, including outside of Malaysia, like in the US and Europe, mid to large size team that don't really do TDD that strictly. That means that they develop something first, then they look back, then they want to do test coverage, right? They can't really get past 50% SimpleCov score. And then apart from this one, right, there are also a few limitations caused by SimpleCov lah. One of it is that if the code is not auto-loaded into runtime, when you run the test, it will become a false positive. SimpleCov will think that it's already covered by the code. So any new Rails project, you run the mini test suite, you'll get 100% score. That's not exactly fine. That means that you need to at least write a test to trigger the loading of your code in order to know that the code is not covered. You cannot know the code is not covered without loading the code at all. That's a big problem. Secondly is DevOps people always say we need to close the dev prod priority, but we have not been closing the test prod parity by using a naive SimpleCov score. We are also not incentivized to write the right amount of test suites in order to improve our QA with reasonable efforts. So I just did a test. I just been Rails new, something with Rails new.app. Yeah, and then I just run the test. You'll get 100% score. You can try this yourself. You'll get it. So I even created some of the controllers inside, but none of the controllers are showing up here. Yeah. So this is my current score formula if you are interested in how I'm doing it. Of course, this one is very much under development. So that means that I just want to make sure that people are willing to pay for something like OyenCov, then I'll improve my solution. If there's no market, there's no problem to solve in the first place. So this is my current solution. The goal is to ensure that everything is at least tested once. The second is to ensure that if it's used more in production, it should also be executed more in tests. The third one is I want to make sure the UI is easy to read and act upon. That means I want to tell you right away what you need to do right now to improve your test rapidly. And it's basically sorted by usage weighted lah. So yeah. So what I noticed is when I divide the test execution by prod execution, you can do this yourself on your own code base. You'll pretty much get a normal distribution curve. And then you can imagine that I forgot already. Yeah, so basically you can imagine there's like a histogram of methods like belonging to each bucket. Each bucket is like the test prod, test over prod basically. The score takes the left side of the graph, and then I try to calculate basically the mismatch of test prod. Because if test prod is exactly perfect, right, that means your test effort and your production runtime effort is exactly in match, there shouldn't be this graph at all. And then the surface error will be pretty much close to 0. So 1000 minus 0, you get 0 or 1000 perfect score. And then on the far end of the graph, you get like some of the methods with test coverage, like 3 to 4 standard deviation below mean. Those will be highlighted. Currently, I'm in MVP stage. You can sign up and play around now. You can install in your code base. Although it's pretty buggy, I'm still working things out with my first user, Anonoz, my previous employer. You can sign up now. It's free. I'm not charging any money. Until my colleague here finish building out the billing system, then you have to start paying money. But you can install now and then play with the MVP and let me know what you're thinking. Yep, that's it.
How do you install it?
Gem install, no, Gemfa put gem OyenCov, bundle install, set an environment variable called OyenCov API key. That's pretty much it. But the CI part is a harder one. You have to add a few more steps in your YAML. You need to hire a YAML engineer. What? Oh yeah, it's on my website. Yep. Thanks for mentioning. Yep. So the setup is rather simple. You just put it inside a gem file. You set an environment. For Puma, add one line. And then for GitHub Actions, you need a YAML engineer a bit. You need to write some YAML codes. That's pretty much it for now. Okay.
All right. Think.
I need whiskey. Huh? Oh yeah, my mic.
All right. Thank you so much, Anonoz. It was a nice introduction of OyenCov, and it's pretty cool. All right. So we're going now to the next speaker. Oh, do I need to share my screen or did I miss that? Oh yeah. Yeah, I lost my connection again. So let me share my screen. Oh, sorry, that's not what I wanted. I'm just bringing back my screen. All right, so our next speaker today is Guoy, and he was going to be talking about instance variable in an object-shaped world. And let me kind of put your thing here. And all right, Guoy, it's you're up.
No. Okay. Hold on. Technical difficulties as usual. Can you see it? Okay, cool. Hold on. Let me time my talk so you all don't have to stay here forever. All right. So instance variable in an object-shaped world. I initially wanted to talk about instant variable memoization in an object-shaped world, but I left that part out when I told Helio about the topic, but I'm still going to talk about memoization in an object-shaped world. Hold on, let me make sure I wants to say it. Cool. I believe if you have worked on Ruby for a bit, this is a common memoization pattern that we use. We have a dynamic property. We set an instance variable called dynamic property to a function or something else that is slow to compute. My suggestion is if you're running Ruby 3.2 and above with widget, is to always set a memorize instance variable with new when initializing, and then you would still continue using the same memoization pattern below the code. So this is essentially what is the talk about. It's not particularly interesting. Well, it was interesting to me, but I think I would lose you all while giving this talk. So I would recommend, if you read better than listening, this is a link you can look at. It's a, yes, as Anonoz mentioned, it is Shopify's blog about how memoization patterns changes their behavior after Ruby 3.2 with implementing object shapes. Quick introduction about myself. I'm Guoy. I do backend, mostly Rails. I shitpost a lot on Mastodon and Threads. Feel free to follow me there if you want more shitposts. I would commonly exchange inter variables with IV. So if I mention IV, it means instance variable. And I am not an expert in this area. I won't be taking questions, but we can discuss about things later. Let's go into some fundamentals on how instance variable is implemented. So in Ruby before n equals to 1.8, this is an example class with an initialize with two instance variable, and we instantiate the class. What Ruby 1.8 and before does is it will create a hash table with the instance variable name and also the value of the instance variable. So in this case, the name of the instance variable will be full, the value will be 1. And when it initializes bar as well, it will set the name and the value in the hash table. With Ruby 1.9, the virtual machine was introduced. And in this case, instead of having a hash table for every instance of an object, so this is an object, we still keep the hash table, but this is only for the object. For each instance of it, we will actually use an array. So in this case, in the index table for the class, I keep mistaking between object and class, I apologize. For the class, the instance variable name is pointing to an index. It doesn't hold a value, but for each instance, there is an array. For example, here, there is index 0, which points to the value of 1. And index 0 in the array refers to full in the index table. So if you just run through the initialization, we do the same thing. In the index table for the class, we set up bar in the instance variable, mapped to index 1. And on the instance of that class, index 1 refers to 2, which is the value of bar. So I'm not looping through the whole thing, but essentially if we create another instance, it's the same thing. Another instance would have their own array, and the array would map back to the class index table. So I guess the question you might have now, if you understood what I talked about earlier, was why are we creating new arrays when we were only creating index tables before in Ruby 1.8? In Ruby, hashes are slow when compared to arrays. I'm not saying hashes are slow in general. That's not the comparison we're doing. It's just slow when compared to arrays. They also use more memory when compared to arrays. So what the technique they were trying to do by implementing this is that they want to have one hash table for that class, and every instance will use an array, so they will amortize the cost of having one index table or hash table. The next thing I'll talk about is doing a hash lookup. So in this case, every instance is mapped to the hash table or index table, and every time they want to refer to what instance variable this is, it has to do the hash lookup. So In this case, we know that every time doing a hash lookup is pretty slow for each array. Can this be improved? Inline caches was implemented. So what is inline cache? Is basically cache objects. They are stored together with the bytecode. I might have skipped this. I definitely skipped this. But essentially, if you're not sure what the virtual machine does, code in Ruby is compiled to bytecode, and the virtual machine runs the bytecode. So in this case, for the inline cache, a cache object, a custom cache object is created to store values regarding that. So it doesn't have to perform the hash lookup every time. There was a couple of problems with this inline cache. I'm not going to go into detail, but I will point to a talk that was done by Aaron Patterson. He's an engineer in Shopify that does a lot of performance improvement in Ruby. You can take a look at that. He goes into a lot of detail on the complexity of handling instance variables in Ruby. So I'm going to talk about object shapes, or essentially why the memorization patterns, or the new memorization patterns, kind of make sense. When we talk about object shapes, is well, obviously not a star, triangle, rectangle, but it's more of Ruby object shape. The object part is a Ruby object, but shapes is essentially this technique that is being used when we're handling this sort of things. One thing to keep in note is objects only change shapes on write. This will be important later. So to give everyone a better idea of what does an object shape mean, is essentially a tree data structure representing an object's property. An object's property can include instance variables. It can also include the frozen state of an object. So there will always, when a class is instantiated, there will always be a root shape. So here we have root with an ID of 0, for example. And when we initialize the class, it will kind of run through each instance variable in the initialization. So here it creates a tree. It will be a linear tree because it's not a very complex class initialization. But it will create a node with full, and it changes full. It creates a new shape with full in ID 1. So if we move down the initialization, there's a new instance variable of bar. It creates a new node with the transformation of bar to in the new shape. Yes, this one covered. Now we have different classes that will kind of have the same instance variable. In here, I have two different classes, example class and different example class, but both of them have the same instance variable. Under object shapes, these two are considered to be the same shape. So trying to link back what I was talking about in the beginning about the memorization pattern after Ruby 3.2. Again, why am I talking about this? What has this got to do with object shapes? Here is kind of an example on how instance variable can cause object shapes to grow exponentially depending on how you use the memorization patterns. For example, here we have a name shape class. We initialize it with an instance variable of name, but we use the common memorization pattern of first name and last name in this case. So we take name, we split the first and the last part of it. So I'll show an example of what I consider a stable shape object, means it doesn't change much. So here we instantiate two name shape objects. You see that it creates the name node already because it's part of the initialization of the class. This is the second object. Again, because when initializing, it has the same instance variable, so it follows the same object shape. And we access the first name of the class. It will create a node for first name, and then as we move on, it will create a node for the last name. So this is for the first object. And when we go through the second object in the same order of accessing it, it will start from the node where the initialization happened. And because we're accessing first name, you'll see that, oh, there is a first name. I don't need to create something else. I'll just reuse the object shape that has been created. Let's look at what I consider an unstable shape object. So here, the same thing, we have two instantiation of two objects. and both of them have their name initialized. Now, as you see here, the first object is accessing through first name and last name, and because there is no node under that object shape, it will create a new object with a node of first name, and it will create a node it will create a node last name with a new shape. In terms of this, as you can see, for the first and second, the order we are accessing is different. In this case, because unstable shape 2 is accessing from the node of name, when it reaches there, it's like there's no last name because of the memorization pattern we use. So in the end, he has to create a new node with a new shape. And same for first name as well. Because it's accessing from the last name, it creates an entirely new object shape. So as you can see, depending on the order of accessing the instance variable, you will create different object shapes, and obviously this takes up more memory, and also it has to traverse, like the VM needs to traverse this, so it takes up more processing as well. I have a more extreme example. So imagine I have 26 instance variables. This might be considered extreme, but if you look at active record, there are some objects that take up more instance variable than this. But essentially, I shortcut this by saying there's 25 IDs, but you imagine it's 25 nodes long. So the VM has to traverse through 25 instance variables before reaching whatever it needs to reach. But this isn't really a problem because there's a PR that's already merged that looks at the ancestors and kind of know how to shrink it. So it's no longer ON, where N is the N is the number of instance variables you have. It does know how to shrink it down and just look at the common ancestors. There's also issues regarding share code between different shapes. I'm not going to go into detail, but Aaron Patterson has a very interesting talk in RubyKaigi about how they improve inline caches by implementing a readback tree. I'm really excited for this. Coming back to this again, so I've talked about object shapes. I kind of built a tree for, if you didn't understand about it, that's fine. But rounding back up to this, what do I have to say about this? Is this pattern really important? Not really. Even in the blog post itself, it says, for moderate use of the pattern outside a hotspot, it's not a major performance concern. But I do believe in not playing in hard mode. So why handicap yourself when there is performance improvement to be had with minor changes? So in this case, I also still recommend initializing memoized instance variables with just new values. If you need truthy or falsy values, the blog post has like a pattern that you could use as well, because new returns a Boolean value when you access this. I'm not sure how helpful this is. I hope it was helpful. You can tell your manager you wasted your time here, it's fine. But these are the references I use. I do encourage, if you want to read more about this, there are very good examples from the blog posts. There's also 2 talks that are very technical that dives into the history as well as the implementation and the issues of each method. Not each method, but each thing that they try to solve. The code gets more complex. There's like caches, there's like objects. What happens if, for example, you don't define an instance variable, then the VM will handle it differently and stuff like that. So if you're interested in this sort of stuff, feel free to look into these talks. I think I did this quite quickly, which is fine. But yeah, that's all from me.
All right. Thank you so much, Guoy. And it was an interesting talk. And I think someone should come and talk about Ruby 3.2 memorization. There's some interesting there's some interesting development in memorization in Ruby 3.2. I remember I glanced through that article, but I haven't spent too much time reading in details. But All right, parking lot. I brought this section back, this meetup, because there's a couple of things that I want to talk about. And the idea here is that we can all share what we are doing or some interesting things that it's going on in your company, in the Ruby and Rails community. Anybody want to share something? All right, so I brought a couple of things here. Red Dot Ruby conference is back in Singapore in July 25, 26. It's so close by. I hope we can meet there and see the conference. Rails survey is up. So Rails developer survey. I don't have a easy, handy QR code for you guys to scan and answer the survey, but this happens every other year and ask about a lot of questions about your Rails app and whatnot and all that kind of stuff. So I recommend you guys check it out and answer. Anybody here writing a new blog post? I don't know. Okay. All right. Anybody writing a blog post? All right. Nobody. When is your next Rails upgrade? Oh, someone or Ruby upgrade. Who's doing Ruby on Rails upgrade here in the next 12 months? All right, I guess that's it. That's kind of what I wanted to show you guys. Tristan, anything you want to share?
You had a blog post.
Yeah, I do. I am writing blog
I
posts.
thought that was you were asking because you wanted to show your.
No. That blog post I'm saving for the next meetup if we don't have speaker. Yeah, so I did went through Rails upgrade, Rails 7 in the past couple weeks, and I wrote a blog post about some parity or disparity in environments, dev, staging, CI, and production. You can say parity or disparity. So that's it, folks. Thank you all for coming, and I see you guys next month.
We still have pizza, I think. So take them. And who's waiting for the Mac announcements later tonight?